Welcome to Lyve Talks, a podcast by Lyve, a tech and logistics company headquartered in Abu Dhabi. On Lyve Talks, we tackle fintech, logistics, business, and best practices in the workplace. I'm Karim Bakhache, the VP of Strategy at Lyve Global, and I will be your host. Welcome to a new episode of Lyve Talks. Today is a special episode as we are celebrating our 2-year anniversary. I'll have a few words at the end of the episode if you stay along. For today, and because it's our special episode, I have our own CTO, Greg, who is joining us to discuss about tech and maybe also focusing on our own products. So maybe, Greg, if you want to give a very quick introduction about yourself, and then we can start along.
Sure. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
For the podcast, obviously. My name's Greg Hucker. I'm an Aussie, so I'm going to try and speak sensibly. I should have started off with g'day, just to get the ball rolling. I've been in the region 17 years, moved from Australia 2008. So I've had a varied sort of career here. Hospitality tech was my bread and butter from Australia. Started a company here that did tech in hotels and resorts. If you've ever been to the Palm and stayed in Tiara residences, that was one of my original builds. Then I was shifted to Egypt and did 2 years in Egypt for a well-established family business. Again, very traditional tech, community builds, data centers, infrastructure, big ERPs, SAP, Oracle, etc. Shifted back to Dubai and did another startup, one of my first original startups where I was a co-founder called Kabon.com, which still exists today.
Of course.
Which is fantastic to have one still running. So I headed up the technology there. And I guess that's kind of where I got, the bug for sort of startups, especially my own, or at the early stage of startup. From there, did a really big range of things, med tech, health tech, beauty, a range of my own companies and a range of established businesses. Then moved into retail. So I consulted companies like IKEA, local family offices here that were in charge of things like Pan Emirates, Pan Home today. And then into logistics where I am today, 4 years in. I've been on both sides of the fence. So in the 3PL side, delivery. So I worked for a delivery company. And Lyve today being a SaaS business providing the technology for companies around the world.
Great. Well, thank you for taking the invite and coming with us today. I think today what we wanted to talk about is, as I said, tech. And, tech has evolved a lot, probably since when you moved here. I mean, it's evolved massively. Everything was on premise. Now we're more and more on cloud. Then SaaS became very popular. So I want to talk about, the evolution very quickly at the beginning, like how we got till now. And then move on into the selection, talk about how business select their tech and what important is. And then we'll talk about innovation because, everybody is talking about a lot of buzzwords. So let's go into these and talk about those.
And with the cool stuff.
Yes, of course. So let's start with the evolution, right? How did you see it and how did you see things evolving? And, you can take examples of what we do also and how does it relate?
I think for me, having a few more years under my belt, on-prem was the thing, right? Everyone wanted their own servers, their own instances, their own security, their own data centers. And I think that was not protective, but that was just what was available at the time.
Right.
Cloud has had a rapid acceleration, but in saying that, AWS came out in 2006.
Right.
GCP 2008. So the cloud journey has been quite substantial. And when you consider where we're at today, there's still a lot of on-prem, a lot of legacy, I guess, a lot of verticals that still rely quite heavily on on-prem. But the dramatic shift has been to cloud. Right. And the cloud has evolved just insanely. Just the services that are offered today that were offered 10 years ago are inherently so different. And they provide just faster, more scalable building blocks to do what we do today. On the SaaS side, what's not to love, right? Dump your CapEx, bring in some OpEx, shift the responsibility of security, scalability, availability to third party, reduce your total cost of ownership, and consume as you consume. So
what I've noticed is maybe one thing that I've noticed, maybe the big companies took a bit more time to kind of do this, because at the end it's a very big migration to go from on-premise to the cloud. But is it really the smaller companies that took advantage the most? Because at the end, before, it was a bit more expensive for them to do anything on-premise. But then suddenly somebody shows up at the door and saying, hey, I can give you this tech and it's going to cost you, I don't know, $20 a month. It's like, wow, okay. I now have access to something I've never thought about. But is that mainly where the biggest impact has been? Or
I think when you're inherently smaller, you do have the ability to move more in a more agile nature. Bigger companies have bigger risk profiles. They have, I guess, more sign-off areas, and they have to do a lot more proof of concept,
right?
To justify, is this what the salesperson is pitching? Right. Is this safe? Is this secure? Is this the future?
Right.
And look, big businesses now have obviously shifted, whether they have their own private clouds or whether they use third-party clouds. So I think newer companies, the startups, have the best of the world today, right? Cloud is essentially the only thing that's available.
Right.
And so you can build best of breed from day zero.
Do you see any difference between regions? Do you think, this region is a bit ahead, lagging behind versus, the US, Europe, maybe Australia, if you have more information?
I think the cloud providers have done an amazing job in extending the footprint for services, both cloud and the opportunity to build services on top of it, like SaaS products. But it has been slower.
Right.
AWS is just moving into Saudi Arabia now.
Right.
Because the need for it and the size of it is only just hitting their sort of, ticking all the boxes.
Right.
Sort of for them. So Australia and Europe, and I think a lot of the other countries maybe are not more progressive, but have maybe adopted quicker.
Right.
Maybe because of government pushes, maybe because of big businesses. And when you look at the UAE being such a young country as well, their rate of adoption is way, way faster than an established or a more established country.
Correct.
So it's really hard to compare, because in one way, a younger country is really accelerated, and more developed countries have accelerated earlier but have probably slowed a little bit.
And at Lyve, obviously I know the answer, but let me ask you, at Lyve, what do we usually kind of provide or recommend in terms of tech?
I think Lyve and companies like us are just so lucky. We're born in the cloud. Right. So, when we try and help companies do that digital transformation, it comes from a good place. But we haven't had to do that transformation ourselves because we were born in the cloud, right? So everything we did was around the digital side. Everything we built was around cloud services. Everything we built was the SaaS, out-of-box model. So we've had luckier journeys, and it's because A, we're inherently younger, but B, the vision of the original founders and the tech at the time thought, let's just build this the way it should be built for the future. Right. So I think we are better suited and better positioned than some.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess what we offer is off-shelf SaaS, heavily customized over the years. You don't become the company we are today without doing some customization, which is difficult. SaaS is something that's meant to be off-shelf. You open the box, you consume the services, and the business builds around it. But what we found is a lot of bigger business, enterprise business, saying, "Well, we'd love it to do that," or "How about that?" Which is not really what an enterprise SaaS is kind of built out of box for. So we've seen in our company in Lyve, this sort of traditional SaaS model move into a SaaS white label sort of hybrid, where we've had to fork the code, on occasion, to build something that's not traditionally off box. Now, the advantage of that is everyone gets access to it. So what we're building is good for everyone if it fits the business model at hand.
And I think this is something important to mention, is how there's a balance between, traditional SaaS, which is kind of out of the box, that, everybody uses, right? Everyone uses a Google account, or everyone uses those like very traditional, if some companies use, the traditional retail tech that exists there, you just get whatever is out of the box. So there's this balance between what is out of the box and how much do you customize. because SaaS in nature, if you customize, then it's applicable to everyone. You cannot just dissociate. And I think some of the organizations the businesses that use SaaS don't understand that actually SaaS is meant to be for everyone the same solution. So if you start customizing, technically that customization is now available to everyone else because that's how SaaS works. So how do you balance this? Because I mean, in our business, we have the small companies, they're okay with the out of the box because, they get access to a tech that they'll never look into, probably only use 50% of it also.
Sure.
But then you have big enterprises that come in that, bring up, the bulk of what you want. But then, they start picking on, I want this one. Can you add this one? Can you add this configuration? And then you end up like in a kind of like a model that is too much customized to one client, almost maybe one, but several clients. So how do you balance between the two in tech? Because this is maybe a challenge.
It's definitely a challenge, and it's a great question. I don't really have an answer for it. I think traditionally you follow your anchor clients, whether that's right or wrong. I think every situation is different. I think when following your anchor clients, though, you start going down a very narrow business mindset. And so your SaaS product starts to look like a very customized enterprise product for a particular consumer. I guess we have a really strong product team that sits between the business. So it looks at information that comes from people like you at the strategic level. And we go out to consumers, not just our big enterprise clients, but our smaller enterprise clients, and ask, how are we performing? What do you need from us? And then we translate those into, real life user stories, and we build based on that. So it's a balance. We use our product team to balance the needs of most of our consumers.
Correct.
And matching that to the business direction that Lyve's taking as a whole business. Right. But it is a tough balance, and it's not always. Not everyone's a winner.
I'm talking about this because it's important for businesses to understand, the nature of, this tech, that is always a balance between what you specifically need and what is standard. And sometimes whatever you specifically need is not available because it is a standard for everyone and it doesn't work with the rest. So anyways, that's one question that I have. Let's move on maybe to the next one. Let's talk about the business when they select these types of tech, because it's important for you to make business understand from your perspective as a tech person, what is important for them when they select a company that is in tech, and especially when they are in SaaS. Yeah. There's a lot of companies out there, obviously a lot of competition. Everybody is probably thinking about price as the first thing, but there's a lot of things more than that are important.
Yeah, for sure. I think functionality and price are always that combination. I think unfortunately in today's world, price is always, and it has been for many, many, many years, and probably will continue along that path. So you've got to be competitive. But to be competitive in SaaS, you need volume within the SaaS product, right? Or you need to have built architecture that allows you to scale. So scalability is a really important factor. If you're bringing on an enterprise client, can you scale quickly, easily? Does the system stand up? Does it affect your other client base? Reliability, I guess, how reliable is the platform? Availability, security is a huge concern today. So we invested Lyve a lot of our R&D into making sure that we're secure. Cyber attacks are only on the rise and getting more complex, much smarter with the advent of AI. Of course. Obviously, things are getting way more complex. So security, availability, scalability. I think something not new, but it's becoming more relevant in today's society and business is environmental. What's your impact? If you're in the cloud, there's an impact. So at Lyve, we've changed processes to be more energy efficient. Now, there's an upside. All of our cloud providers are discounting the use of that because they've got their own ECGs to meet. They have to be carbon neutral. They have to offset the energy that they're burning. So sustainability is a big factor today as well.
But how can a business know if you are reliable and scalable? I mean, I'm putting myself as the business now. I have like different companies in front of me, and I really need to know if they're scalable. Do you run tests?
So our enterprise clients often ask us to run a performance test. So they give us some factors we must scale to, and then they look at the system performance, and we have to provide the tool set to allow them to do that. That's complex because we don't scale our production environment. We scale our staging or testing environments, depending on how your environments are set up, which aren't often the biggest environments. So you've got to take some scalability testing with a little bit of give and take. We do things like penetration testing as well, obviously very regularly for security purposes, so we can provide those documents.
Right.
So I think if you're in the market, you should ask for performance tests, penetration tests. And if you want to go that next step, your ISO 27001, your SOC 2, so process standards, how do we protect your data? How do we store it? What processes do we follow? Who has access to it? If there is a breach, how do you rectify it? How do you notify us?
Right.
And on the security side is just how secure, is our data.
I mean, this is the price to pay when you're in the SaaS, right? I mean, now that you're actually as a company given control of your tech and your data to a third party, which has its own risk. So then you need to check for all these because it's not anymore on your servers. You don't have full control. So if something happens, your business is directly impacted. So you need to make sure that,
availability is key, right? In SaaS, every millisecond you're down is an order that's not being delivered, is a driver sitting idle on the road, is a customer whose pizza is getting cold.
Yeah.
And although we're not in the medical space or we're not in science or space, the reliability of the system is just hugely paramount today. And that takes a lot of effort.
I think one of the things also I heard was obviously having good support, technical support, making sure that the people you're interacting with understand what are the problems and how to fix them, right? Because there is even if it's 0.001%, there is some downtimes that happens. Every organizations have them. But it's about how you manage those and get back online and manage all the clients that are impacted. That is important.
Yeah, look, client support, whether it's customer success or actual end technical support, is critical. Lyve run 24/7, which brings its own complexities,
of course,
obviously. But we have clients in 23 countries, all different time zones, all different requirements. So 24/7 is like a natural part of what we do. Training, making sure everyone's up to date on the platform, the core, the new features and functionality that we bring out, so that when customers do come to us, that we know how to respond. We run night shifts, so we've got our teams working at night for the benefit. Our maintenance windows are so small today. When you're guaranteeing a 99.9 something on the end, the downtime you can incur without scheduled downtime is very low.
Yeah, that's very tricky when you think if you're covering the whole world, that gives you maybe half an hour or an hour somewhere to do all the updates.
Yeah, we look at our region and say, hey, we can do downtime at 3 a.m, but then in the Philippines, that's breakfast.
Exactly.
So we can't bring KFC down. KFC is probably not a great example for breakfast, but the idea is to make sure you've got that support mechanism in place.
Of course.
And it is critical, and they're the questions you can ask. Where is your support? How do they rotate? What's the number? What happens in an emergency? Can you show us downtime and the rectification processes that you follow to get us up and running?
Of course. Good. Okay. Let's now move on to the more exciting stuff that people want to talk about, which is, innovation, right? How do you keep up with innovation? Because I'm not a tech person like you, but I read a bit about, they talk about new ways of doing, new programming ways, unstructured, structured, moving from cloud, different things, microservices, no microservices, let's move on to one. And it seems like every year there's either a new recipe or a new something comes. And I'm only talking about tech, we'll talk about AI later. But I'm just talking about kind of how do you keep up in terms of staying up to date on the tech innovation? Because that seems to be constantly changing. And every year, someone comes up with something new and say, oh, everybody should do this. And then you just move to this. And then
I think it's easy to follow the flashing light.
Yeah.
And in our company, you've had 3 or 4 CTOs and CDOs come through, and you can see sort of the flashy lights, the microservices are, it's an ongoing
of course.
debate. Are they great? Are they fantastic? Are they not? And we've, in some cases, followed those paths. We have a microservices layer, which is fantastic, decoupled, flexible, it can run independently. But then, someone new will come in and follows the innovation of the year. There's been a lot of buzzwords out there and continue to be a lot of buzzwords. We look at things like training is obviously important. So on the cloud side, being a SaaS provider, our cloud providers give us training, the opportunity for training, very strong training programs. So we do that. Obviously, forums, podcasts, blogs, self-training, I think is a great thing. There are so many great tools out there today where we push our developers and product people to certification is a great way. I think experience as well, hiring that right talent. So hiring a combination of generational talent is really critical because you get the fresh new thinking versus what's been working in the past and making that sort of hybrid approach. So it is difficult, but I guess we are not a company that follows the flashy light at the bleeding edge.
Right.
I feel in some cases we're at the cutting edge, but the bleeding edge is a dangerous place to be because you can fall off the cliff quite quickly.
Of course.
And get sucked into some of the buzzwords. So yeah, we've got a great core. Let's start with that. And then our core is modular enough to build out both vertically and horizontally. So when something new does come in, that we're able to sort of pivot into it.
And I think this is important also for, customers or businesses to understand that, innovation comes with certain things that need to be invested in the tech. You need to move in certain directions. It doesn't happen instantly. There's a lag between something you hear that is new and until it's implemented. And that's normal, right? I can again take the example of AI when everybody talked about Gen AI as the new thing and everybody rushed into it. But then there's probably a lag of a year between the first time we heard about, ChatGPT and everybody was cool typing any questions. And then you can see it now, sweeping into different things that you do. It could be in things you use at work or personally, and you can see this sweeping in, but it took at least 6 months to a year to get there because there's a bit of development and also skills training to understand how does it incorporate, is it the right case study, the right use case that you want to have. So it's not instantaneous. So you follow innovation, but you also need to adjust internally to see if it works correctly.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Pivoting is not always easy. Even advancing or enhancing the tech, it's not fast. It can be completed quickly, but in SaaS, you've got to, do 1 billion tests. We've got 1 million lines of code. We've got enterprise clients who rely on us heavily. You have to be sensitive to everything that's out there.
Of course.
But we set aside like an hour a day and say, go and innovate, come back and do something cool. Tell us what you think we should be doing. I think a lot of innovation is overlooked internally.
Right.
So we try and encourage that innovation internally as well.
That's very important. You're right. You're absolutely right. And a lot of companies try that. I mean, I remember the one, they say take the day, Friday as the innovation day. I think it was Google who said that. I don't remember. But anyways, it's the right thing to think about. Okay, let's move on to buzzwords and talk about openly what does it mean, especially in our ecosystem, right? Which is, delivery management software and order management and POS if you want. I mean, let's talk about that ecosystem and talk what does AI mean in that ecosystem, and maybe the confusion between AI and ML, because people always get confused about the two. Maybe first understand what is AI, what is ML, and then how does it impact our work?
Yeah, so I guess if you look historically, and again, being cloud-based, Lyve's technology is automated. Again, by automated, I mean we have business rules that we plug in to set fields and parameters, and then we step away from it and we run someone's operational business on their behalf. How do we get, pizza hot and fast, right? How do we allow the customer to get a sub 30-minute delivery time, depending on the products? And our focus is shifting that automation firstly into ML, ML is very important. Cleaning our data is very critical. We're a 7 to 8 year old business, so we have an immense amount of really cool data that we're very excited to put predictive engines across. I guess if I can take an example, we have an auto assignment where we build business rules around, and again, it's automated, it can be tuned, but it's a manual process. Do once, set and forget. Our next evolution is ML, where we actually teach a machine to learn those business rules. So we take out the configurational component and look historically. And then you can simply, the customer can say, I want performance mode or I want cost mode. And then the engine delivers in either of those modes. Then AI is the next level. There's no switch. It looks at historical data and the engines across all of our data, takes in metadata like weather, and other things, availability of drivers, geographical components related to the country, and then does it by itself.
Correct.
Without human interaction.
Correct.
And we as a company are not quite there yet. We're doing a lot of data cleansing. You'll hear a lot of new companies saying we're AI driven, which is fantastic, but it's very difficult to be AI driven if you're a 2-year-old company, because you typically don't have the data set that's required to make AI decisions. You're probably doing algorithmic ML or algorithmic with some ML, and there's nothing wrong with that. ML is a fantastic, progressive tool. And so where we're at today is shifting automation to ML. We have introduced some AI into the platforms. For example, in our order management solution, we've put in an AI search with OpenAI. For our grocery product, so you can type in almost any string of text that you want. Show me low-fat yogurt or show me low-fat meals, and it'll produce an array of products. So we've taken some of those quick wins, but again, we're tuning someone else's engine. We haven't really moved into the language models ourselves, and we probably won't do, because there's a big cost with LLMs, and there's a lot of great engines already out there today, which we're evaluating.
Yeah. And I think it's important, the point you made about, somebody claiming that they're AI, but, are young. It's actually quite impossible, because you don't have the data to claim that you're an AI gen. And a lot of what's the buzzword that we hear is actually algorithmic, and it's not really what we mention as AI in the media. So it's important for someone to understand exactly, if somebody's claiming I'm AI engine, to ask the next question, which is, can you explain a bit more what do you mean by AI engine, and differentiate between automatic assignment, which is just anyone can do, and actual AI.
Yeah, and I think the distinction is important. You should be able to ask those questions. If you are using AI, whose engine are you using? Are you using OpenAI? Are you using Google? Are you using Q from Amazon? Like, you've got to know what that is, and you've got to know which engine. Is it public? Are you exposing your data to the public domain, and are you training competitors on your data?
Yeah.
Right? Is it in-house, GCP, Gemini, obviously on Google side, multinodal, super cool, images, videos, text. You got ChatGPT 4.0's out. It's phenomenal.
Right.
And then, of course, you got Q from AWS, sort of more newer, but cloud-based AI. So helping you unwrap services from Amazon. So they're all different sort of types. Knowing who is being used, fantastic. And look, Falcon, shout out to the local LLM that's been built here by the region. So for the region, which is fantastic.
Amazing. Okay. So maybe let's now talk about kind of the future of tech, and how do you see this evolving in the next few years? Open question.
Crystal ball
question. No one saw AI a few years ago. Now look at it.
It's so weird. Like, AI, again, is not a new technology.
Yeah.
How we use it and the commercial availability of it is very different today. And obviously companies like NVIDIA, who have done an amazing job producing, chips and processors, the GPUs to power the tech. That side of the business is fantastic. Crystal ball. I'm a big believer in the transition from code to low code, no code, and we're doing a little bit of that today. For example, we use design tools like Figma. And Figma now has extensions where we can produce code based on design without a traditional developer.
Wow.
So
okay. Interesting.
We're looking internally to say maybe 30 to 40% of all our initial coding will be done by an AI engine or an ML extension that allows us to do things quicker. And the human component will be coming in the checking, the cleansing, the more intelligent logic component of the code. It's not there yet. That's for sure. We're not replacing developers today.
That was going to be my next question, but
I hold a not so popular view that I think the traditional development role is almost at an end.
Wow. Okay.
Again, not very popular.
Again, it's a crystal ball. These guys maybe you say the traditional, but they're moving into something more interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely traditional. The idea of going out and having a platform entirely built by humans, I think, is almost dead. And if the company you're hiring to do that, whether it's SaaS or traditional development, is only using humans, you're not probably getting the fastest, most efficient, cost-based application. You're probably still getting an amazing platform, but it's going to cost you probably just that little bit more. And that's got its pros and cons, obviously. I think I would like to see Lyve sort of in that 30 to 40%, where everything that we develop is AI first, no code, low code. And then our traditional developers transition into the really cool stuff, taking the low-hanging, everyday, generic code base, making sure it is perfect, but concentrating on shifting talent into ML and AI and how we take our data and do really cool things with it that extend out delivery management or order management that are, very commoditized now. How do we keep our enterprise clients? It's not just by doing the same thing over and over. It's by doing extensions of the product with the data that we have to give them more opportunity to be successful.
Great. Okay. Well, listen, thank you for being our guest.
Thank you.
It was great having you. Maybe I'll just say a few words because it's our 2nd year anniversary. I just want to thank the whole original team who came up with the idea, the current team who's doing all the effort in, creating these episodes, the production team at Podster because they're always here to help us, making this a great journey. So 2 more episodes. Thank you again and see you next time.